Tonight, no parole for Bunny Holmes. She's the woman convicted of orchestrating a murder in Huntington in 2004.
Yeah, she was originally sentenced to life with mercy, meaning she was eligible for parole after 15 years. That parole hearing took place last month, and Holmes was granted parole. But as discovered in WSAZ investigation, the Cabell County prosecutor said a scheduling error by the Department of Corrections led to an early parole for Holmes.
Anything to say to the Morgan family?
Shirlethia Bunny Holmes was stone silent from the moment she arrived and all throughout the proceedings she had hoped would ultimately lead to her freedom.
Would you like to say anything to family members at all?
Instead, Cabell County Circuit Judge Chad Lovejoy ruled that Holmes is not eligible for parole until November of 2026.
She was getting credit. She was serving a federal sentence. She doesn't get two bites of the apple just for committing two crimes.
Holmes was convicted of ordering a hit on Wendy Morgan in 2004 and sentenced to life with mercy, making her eligible for parole in 15 years. Exactly when the clock started ticking on those 15 years was the question behind the current legal proceedings. Holmes' attorney pointed to a resentencing hearing 2 years after her conviction, where Judge Alfred Ferguson, who presided over the Wendy Morgan case, said Bunny should be given credit for any time served for the murder.
You agree with me the court speaks through its orders, right?
Absolutely.
So what is meant from this court is what is put down in those orders, right?
But prosecutor Jason Spears brought Judge Ferguson out of retirement and up on the stand, where he reiterated his original ruling that Bunny's prison term would begin only after she had already finished serving her time on federal drug charges in November of 2011.
Do you recall what your order was related to when she would serve her time and conviction on the murder?
Surely, yeah. Well, she had a prior conviction in federal court, I understood it was drugs, and she was serving that sentence at that time.
That means Bunny's hearing in March, in which she was granted parole, is null and void. She'll have to do it all over again in November of 2026. The judge's decision obviously satisfied the prosecution's request regarding the Morgan case, but investigators say Bunny was also the focus of an investigation into the deaths of 4 teens in the 2005 prom night murders, even though she was never charged.
Until I get to go to court and get some justice for my child, I'm never going to sleep on it.
And by the way, Wendy Morgan's aunt told us, even though it was so hard to have to go back and relive one of the hardest times in our family's lives, the relief I felt when I walked out was worth the sadness. I thank everyone who worked so hard to see that justice was served. Bunny Holmes' parole, as we say, denied today based on that miscalculation. What comes next, though, for Holmes?
It is a big question left to answer. Kimberly Keggy is here now with a breakdown of what is to come and why Kimberly, the prosecuting attorney, says change needs to happen statewide.
So the order today, as Cabell County prosecuting attorney Jason Spears phrased it, resets the clock as it was intended by law. And let's go ahead and revisit the timeline of how we got here, though. Shirlethia Bunny Holmes was convicted of ordering a hit on Wendy Morgan in 2004 and sentenced to life with mercy, meaning she would have been eligible for parole in 15 years. Holmes was granted parole last month, but prosecutors argued that because she was in federal prison at the time of that conviction, she didn't begin serving time for the Morgan case until 2011. And with that in mind, she will not be eligible for parole until November of 2026. And when that time comes, Holmes will have to have another parole hearing. And that's really important to point out here because the order does not say her release would be delayed until November. Instead, Holmes will have to remain in jail and serve the remainder of her sentence and apply for a new parole hearing in November 2026. Prosecuting attorney of Cabell County, Jason Spears, says he does intend to talk with state lawmakers about what he calls a need for a better system when it comes to alerting law enforcement and victims' relatives.
When someone is eligible for parole, that it follows the law and follows the intent of that court. They are the deciders of the sentence, and the parole board needs to follow that, and I believe they're going to do that today.
Now, that lack of representation was another complaint about Bunny Holmes' parole hearing last month. And if you remember, no one from the victim's family or law enforcement or even the courts appeared before that parole board. So that's certainly a conversation of how things are looking, how they're looking to change it statewide.
Yeah, only members of the West Virginia Parole Board and Bunny Holmes' mom were on that call at the time. All right, thanks, Kimberly.
Kimberly, thank you.